house, or our day went well. So, I'm your host, Matthew, and got my sidekick, Sean, something like that. But for joining us today is Professor Odom, Mychal Odom, and welcome. Glad to have you.
Yeah, it's just a pleasure.
Well, no problem. Thanks for being here.
Oh yeah. So we're just going. The whole reason for today's episode is just like kind of misunderstood stereotypes, because it seems like there's a lot of pressure, a lot of stuff going, or just I guess pressure put onto the Black community, I would say, on what we're supposed to be versus who we want to be and who we're just trying to be, like, overall. Because at the end of the day, like, we're just trying to live. We're just trying to survive just like everyone else, but there's expectations and shit put on us. So, but we have joining us Shayon, but he's not going to be able to fully be into it just because he's got his own class stuff going on. Yeah. So he's going to come in, ask some questions, and then be out.
Okay.
But Shayon, if you want to start real quick, you want to get us going?
Let's see. He should be on.
Oh no.
Okay. So he's in.
Might be doing.
Charlie. Who is Charlie?
Yeah, Charlie Shayon. He's that's just his profile name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess he's in a class discussion right now, so I'll probably start it. But can we go into the history behind the term whitewash, and then why it is so commonly used by Black people and non-Black people that may not speak with a certain dialect or not be into the stereotypical interests?
Oh wait, so you mean in terms of like saying people themselves are whitewashed, or an issue is whitewashed?
Not an issue. Yeah, that's a whole another topic in itself. Like, with history being whitewashed and that kind of stuff. But I guess with my question is like the people that are being labeled whitewashed, like Black people that might not be a sneakerhead or following like keeping up on this or going to all the parties or like stuff like that. Someone who's like, I don't know, more about his whatever he's into himself. So that's what I want to touch on.
Oh, okay. And are Black people calling these people white, or white people calling these people white?
I'd probably say a bit of everybody. We've had I've had Black people and non-Black people say it. So
yeah. First off, like in terms of like understanding what we're dealing with here, instead of just calling it racism, I think it's important to identify these issues as colonialism. People don't use the term colonialism anymore, but it still is important for us to use, because when we understand the structures that are really impacting the lives of Black people in the U.S. as a system of colonialism, then we understand that it's an old system. And it's a system of politics and economics. It's not just a system of, like, say, negative ways in which people think about people, right?
Right.
And that's what we generally think about when we're talking about racism, as we're talking about ideologies. But what we might call racism is simply just an ideology that's ideological justification for the positions in which certain people are, right? In which Black people are, the position that Black people are in relationship to white people. Now, which is for the last 600 years meant to be the oppressed people, the people through whom which there's some form of exploitation and some form of value pulled from your community to make the other community wealthy, right? So,
right.
So there's a certain situation in which people are saying, like, okay, you don't fit that stereotype. What they're basically saying is like the relationship through which we want you to exist in relationship to us, or the relationship we think Black people should exist in relationship to white society, like you're outside of that, so we don't know what to do with it, right? You're literally like out of place, out of line, right? So. In the old days, they would talk about someone being uppity, right, or a Black person acting out of place, or Negroes acting uppity and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was really That's really, I think, captures the essence of what we're talking about here. Is that here they come across a black person, and the black person doesn't fulfill certain colonial justifications for like the general relationship between white people and black people. I mean, whether we took, I forget if it was 140A or 140B that we took with y'all.
I think it was 140B.
It was
Okay,
B,
yeah. So 140B, we talked about Jim Crow and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Jim Crow itself was a set of colonial justifications for the relationship between whites and blacks to remain the same, right? Because they had slavery, and then after slavery was over, they created Jim Crow, and Jim Crow first was a cultural figure, right? It was a blackface minstrel, but then it became it was so powerful because it became a way to think about black people, a way to think about black people in relationship to white people, right? And then if you
Right.
could think about black people that way, then it's okay to basically treat black people that way, right? And things like that. So many of the ways to think about black people, and they have a variety of different stuff out there, right? Was to think about black people as not serious, right?
Less of
To
a
think,
human type.
right, less human. So the way in which you thought about black people as less human was yeah, like less human, but and also less adult, like childlike, right? So there was always this idea that like black people were childlike, they want to party all the time,
Mhm.
they don't know when it's time to go to sleep, right? So they don't take work serious, things like that. So during the time of slavery and after slavery, during what they had called the minstrel shows, we saw a lot of these stereotypes. And like I said, specifically, one of them was, black people's happy and lazy, right? That was
Yeah.
what they call Sambo characteristic. You had, older black men was like wise and loyal, right? They wasn't free, but they was wise and loyal and really loved to be around white folks. That's the uncle. That's the uncle stereotype. Black women was bossy, right? That was what they call sapphire. Black women was really like burly, asexual, and once again loved to serve white people. That was the mammy stereotype. There was the stereotype of black men being real big and violent, right? That's called the brute stereotype, and that was really used to really justify the violence against black people. But then there was also really a stereotype that goes all the way back to the early 19th century about black people as being like excessively concerned with what you might call conspicuous consumption, right? Buying things, high fashion, just so people can see us and things like that. And it was very depoliticized because a lot of black people did get concerned with buying things, but that's because the other stereotype of black people is that black people didn't keep themselves up, right? So like because the
Right.
stereotype of black people didn't keep themselves up, black people were concerned with their presence, but it wasn't depoliticized, right? It had a political aspect to it, but to acknowledge that political aspect to it means that like white culture can't like take a value out of that, right? So I want to say that because like you said, I mean, there's these ideas. What happens is it's easier for some black people, some African people in the U.S. to fall into those stereotypes because it's a set place, right? It's a set place you can exist, and then if you exist in that place, there's going to be privileges within the system of colonialism for black people to act like how white people want black people to act, right? There's nothing inherently black about being a part of sneaker culture or hip hop or turning
Right.
up or smoking weed or something like that, right? And to do so really is anti-black, right? Is to sort of to think so is anti-black. And so you get a lot of people who want to invest in that, especially if they don't really know who they are. They might invest in that because they see rewards in it, right, from the dominant culture to act like how black people think black people should act, right?
Yeah.
So that's one level. I mean, in terms of, but then there's a flip side about that where, like, so it could be something that we see as excessive, like being part of fashion culture. But then it could also be something that we see as actually acting white, right? Like distancing yourself from black folks, and things like that.
Or straightening your hair along those kind of lines.
Right, straightening your hair, straighteners.
Yeah.
Purposely not trying to live near black people, things like that. But I do want to say two things, right? That there is this big stereotype. There's a big stereotype that white. If a black person succeeds, black people will say he's acting white, and I don't believe that's actually true per se, right? I mean, you two have succeeded. Your parents haven't said y'all need to stop acting white or something, or the reason why I say this is because oftentimes in school, some of these scholars have created this narrative really to explain away the structural problems in education, right? What they want to say, because it's not just about those who succeed, it's about those who don't succeed. What happens is they want to say, oh, black kids don't succeed because they're afraid of being accused of acting white. And no, they don't succeed in education because the system ain't set up for them to succeed in education. You know what I mean? It's just very basic. I mean, you and I, we were at Miramar College when we met, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just being at Miramar, culturally, it's a little bit more conservative, but it's just a lot easier to teach at Miramar. First off, you could find a parking spot and walk to class. and everybody that uses Miramar know that, the best thing about Miramar and Miracosta is you can actually roll up and find a parking spot and get to class, right?
Mm-hmm.
I teach at Miracosta, and people think parking is bad. Sometimes it takes them 5 minutes to find a parking spot.
Not bad.
At City College, I mean, you might actually have to park from Golden Hill and catch the bus to school. You can literally drive to school and have to park in a neighborhood. Then you come back and get a ticket because you find out that you weren't supposed to park in that neighborhood. That neighborhood's so resident.
Terrible.
You know what I'm saying? So if the structures literally aren't set up for you actually to succeed in school, and then they explain away, they say, oh, black people don't want to succeed because they see it as acting white. That's the biggest lie ever. I mean, all black people do is go to school, right? If you grow up in a black if you grow up in a black church, you got school on Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got school on Tuesday or Wednesday, youth church, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your mama might go to Bible study. On the weekends, if you go to a black church, you're gonna be out doing some community service, passing out tracts, talking to people,
Mm-hmm.
giving food to people. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you can't tell me black folks don't like learning. But I think that you do have that contradiction, and that you do have some people who have actively chosen to be what they think is as non-African, non-black,
Mm-hmm.
and then they want to blame black people for it. There's this guy, his name was Gerald McWhorter. Gerald McWhorter wrote a lot of that stuff, Oddly enough, he wrote all this anti-black stuff, always blaming black people for what they are, and then he turned around and supported Obama, which I think sort of showed some of the limitations of Obama himself, right? Because, everybody supported Obama, then as soon as Obama got in the White House, he said he was president for all people, not for black people, right? His big speech on race, basically, blamed black people for our position, made excuses for his grandparents who used the N-word and stuff like that. So I do think that there are instances in which some black people get caught acting white because they literally acting white. But I mean, but I also think that so there are ways to act white. But I mean, just not participating in sneaker culture and a bunch of other silly. Can we cuss? But just a bunch of other silly shit and stuff like that. That don't make you black. I mean, if anything, that make you white because black folks don't have money to do all that stuff, right? It's really. I mean, because the big, like I said, Bill Cosby, Dr. Touch and Phil himself, said all this negative stuff about black people. The reason black people don't succeed in school is because they give their kids funny names and they spend all their money on clothes and stuff like that. Remember, he said that, and then They go and steal some pound cake, and then they get shot by the police, and then they want to be crying, but nobody told the kid not to steal pound cake, right? And the thing is, there's elements within our community that said he telling the truth, It's bullshit. That's not why black people are getting murdered. That's not why black people don't have money for school. I grew up with nothing. I grew up with nothing. I didn't have no damn Jordans. First pair of Jordans I ever had was 1993, Christmas 1993. My uncle, who was a world famous track coach, his name is Bob. His wife and my aunt is Jackie Jordan Kersey, right? My Uncle Bobby gave me $100, right? And we knew Christmas was going to be good because Uncle Bobby was probably going to give us all $100. He was famous. He had money. None of us had money. So Uncle Bobby gave me $100, and I went to Foot Locker. That was back when Foot Locker, that was before the outlet boom and the internet. And, if because nowadays if you order some kicks, if Nike sends kicks to Foot Locker and the shoes don't sell in a certain amount a week, they can send that stuff back to Nike. They'll receive some of their money back, and Nike will send it to the outlet. Or distribute it or send it to stores where the shoes are selling. Right? It wasn't like that in the past. So if a store got shoes, they sold this. The shoes sat there until they sold. Right? And if they had to go on sale, they had to go on sale. So it was one of these like bargain bin sales. This was 1993, but it was the Jordan 7s, the Cardinal 7s, right? And we didn't really know names like that. It was just like the red and gold 7s or something like that. We would have called it. I don't even know if we call them the 7s. I think we called them the years they came out or something like that. 1991s or something like that. But they had sat there for 2 years, right? So I saw I remember that they had a box and they didn't have the top on the box, but it was some Jordans, and I got them for $50. And that's the only pair of Jordans. That's the only pair of Jordans I had in high school. Next time I had Jordans was in college. I think it was the only pair of Jordans I had. I remember I got a couple other nice pair of Nikes because my uncle his track team was sponsored by Nike, and they'd give me some Nikes. But besides that, we shopped at outlets. We shopped at Ross. Sometimes, but I just want to say that because, like, that's a stereotype. That's a myth. I mean, in San Diego, Filipinos buy all the shoes. Everybody know that. It's no one says, I mean, it's now they invest in that stuff based off of their understanding of black culture. But once again, colonialism is about expropriating the value that black people bring to society, right? So if that makes sense, you know what I mean?
From our celebrities like Michael Jordan and all those people that they all worship, Kobe and all them.
Right.
Like they see them, they want to be like them, so they get their shoes and all that stuff and think they awesome stuff.
Right. So the sneaker culture for sure was started by black people, but that's back was a survival tactic. It was something to, something like that. But most of these cultures that sort of we started have timed out.
They've grown into something else.
Like it's something else. It's so yeah. Hopefully that makes sense.
No,
definitely. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. But I think that would probably lead to like Sean, you had a question too, like kind of retaining around blackness itself.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask, like, your personal opinion, like, how would you define true blackness outside of all the silly stereotypes and whatnot? Like, really defining just true black identity and really, moving past all the stereotypes and hearing, all the weird and offensive terms like, oh, you're whitewashed, you act white, you're not black, you
Right.
know, that sort of thing.
Right. There's this essay. The essay is called African Identity is Key.
African Identity is King.
And African Identity is Key, and it's by a guy named Omali Yeshitela from this book here. It's called One Africa, One Nation. And first and foremost, the important thing he notes is that the titles that we exist with were placed upon us by colonial powers, African American, Jamaican, Haitian, not Haitian, Haitian Africans created that term. but African American, Jamaican, Nigerian, South African, whatever it is, right? These are colonial distinctions placed on black people by white power
Mm,
for the purpose of dividing people, right? So much of what we come to think of as blackness and even black culture, like he was talking about, is the result of the division of black people
mm,
and stuff like that. So first off, we got a place. So to overturn that, overturning and claiming identity for our own is about eventually claiming political independence for Black people, what we call self determination.
mm,
That's what it's about. So blackness, Africanness is the creation of an anti-colonial identity for self determination, freedom for Black people, right? So it's the same as what's his name, the type of stuff that Marcus Garvey talked about.
mm-hmm.
The way in which he saw blackness. So blackness, in that sense, is a political unit, right? It's not a it's like I said, it's not just about culture. At the end of the day, it's about freedom, right? So it's
Right.
about so unity of Black people, liberation of Black people, an embrace of the culture and existence of the most despised of Black people, right? The
Mm,
poorest of Black people, right? So it's not just about hashtag Black excellence and
yeah.
stuff like that, because Black excellence, representation matters, all that stuff. Oftentimes, just becomes another form of integration as well. You know what I mean? Of yeah. Because then, like I said, then you get So that's what I would say. It's a political identity. Um,
Ah.
uh, it's baked in it is resistance. There's this other book. I'm pretty sure we read this book, or at least elements of this book when we took a class from Tucson to Tupac.
Yeah, I still got that book. I've been meaning to
Yeah,
reread
I
that.
remember that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so when you look at the beginning, it talks about Black identity, what they call the Black International, and they say the Black International is the result of is the defining characteristic of the Black International, which is Black people all around the world, is struggle. But struggle alone doesn't produce the Black International, this sort of politicized global grouping of Black people. The Black International is the result of consciousness, right? So the culture that's created, the ideas that's created, is meant to unify people for a collective political goal, if that makes sense, and
Mm-hmm.
anything that sort of falls outside of unifying us for that collective political goal ain't useful in terms of being Black. I mean, and defining blackness. Like I said, I mean, I think people might. I don't know if people call it swag, drip, whatever they want to call it now. You know what I'm saying? I
Literally.
think that I think that like that stuff is Black to an extent. There's certain Black aspects of it that go all the way back to pre colonial Africa.
Mm,
Expressive culture is central to how Black people see themselves.
Hmm.
I mean, you got that tapestry hanging behind you, multiple colors. Both of y'all have them, right? Tapestry
yeah.
sort of hanging behind you. Or if I don't know if that's a tapestry behind you, Sean,
Yeah,
or
it is.
like
It is.
a screen. Okay, yeah. So multiple colors actually represent good health in the African tradition, because it said that evil travels a straight line. So if you compare like European culture to African culture, um,
Hmm.
uh, you think about, say, how the settlers dressed in those black outfits, and anything that was seen
Mm,
vibrant was seen as possibly evil and stuff like that. Whereas African culture, I mean, they're gonna have some reds, some yellows, some greens, some blues.
it's
People
vibrant.
faces gonna be painted. People might do all sorts of things to the necks, to the facial scarification, right? Creativity
Mm,
represents life force and stuff like that. So that's important. But the problem, but the problem is when that creativity becomes attached to um, simply to like capitalist production. You know what I mean? To like because then what happens is people start feeling they're not black because they don't got money to waste on shoes. I mean, and the
Mm.
shoe market is out of control now. I mean, you can't get a single release. I mean, Boo Boo Jordan's releasing, you can't get them on release date. Last week, some Boo Boo Jordans released, some Jordan 9s, not an original color, some weird yellow looking color on it. Every single one of them shoes got bought up. You
Good
know,
grief.
so now if you just want a pair of shoes, you gotta pay at least the lowest amount of resale, which is I don't know,
Yeah, double, triple.
220 on StockX. Well, nah, I said the lowest amount of
Yeah,
resale.
StockX. Like,
Like,
whoa.
like the lowest amount of resale generally is at least $40 to $50, right? So if you
Mm-hmm.
so you see a pair of shoes released on Foot Locker, it don't even matter what the retail is. I mean, unless you can literally get it or win that raffle or something like that, all the shoes going to be all the shoes going to be somewhere. So that's I mean that can't be black culture. I mean, you know, and stuff like that.
Mm.
But anyway, yeah. Hopefully that means something. So yeah, to me,
Oh, it means a lot.
blackness is about politics. It's about black freedom. It's about black unity. You know, it's about the black working class. It's about protection of black women and other people of other black sexualities and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's great.
just
That's great. Yeah.
Shay, you ready? Or
Yeah, I'm ready.
Well,
all right.
Do you have a preference of what you'd like to be, addressed by, or yeah?
It don't matter.
All right.
It doesn't matter.
All right. So back to the education part. I was, I've heard both sides of like this. Where, do you think we should get rid of Black History Month as a whole, and then integrate it into just the regular curriculum and just teach it all throughout the year instead of just having 1 month dedicated to it, or just whole year round just teach it with the rest of the history that people learn in high school or middle school or whatever it is.
I mean, I don't know, right? I mean, first off, I mean, someone don't say, we only gonna appreciate you on the day that you was born, but the rest of the year, you ain't shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I mean, they,
right.
they're not mutually exclusive ideas that the concepts emphasized in February need to be taught year round. I think that's one thing. So but it's important to understand the origins of Black History Month, right?
Yeah.
Black History Month began as an anti-colonial political movement led by a guy named Carter Woodson, who understood that how we started off today. There was colonial justifications for the oppression of Black people being circulated, and central to that was that was central, and central to that was education. The way in which people were being taught to think about Black people. The education system sat as a system, that justified the political economic position of Black people as an oppressed class of people. So that's why the movement emerged. The other thing is that I think the question shouldn't be about Black history. The question should be about what we might call white history. The truth is that white history ain't real history. The true history of white people in the U.S. has not been told. So I wouldn't want Black history integrated into the false history of white people in the United States. I mean, it's just not. But the production of history itself is the production of value, right? When a person has children, a person is producing history. I mean, they're producing their own legacy. But what happens is, in any oppressive system, is that the oppressor wants to once again exploit the value of production of that other group of people, right? So whatever Mychal produces or creates, this person over here wants to make value of, right? So what happens is they'll distort my history and sort of lie about their own history through a variety of different ways. I mean, it's very easy. Just change the moment in which you start telling somebody's history. Start Black history in the middle of start Black history in the middle of enslavement, and start white history in the middle of the Renaissance, and you end up with Black people don't know shit and white people know everything. You know what I mean? And that's basically what we've been told for the last 600 years. As the justification for that position. So what I would say is that what I would say just to add to that is that I don't have any problem with Black History Month. I got a problem with the educational system. So I don't think they have to stop teaching it. I think it's also a political question. I honestly think that sort of the question too often we think it's like how we can make Black people mix into the white world. I'm not saying you're saying that, but that's what that's still suggesting that Black people don't want to have the deficit. But the truth is, white people don't want to have the deficit, right? They're the global minority, right? The whole society is propped up off of the theft of other parts of the world. So the truth is, for the white world actually to advance, they gotta like take a better look at their own history, right? Their own history, and there's this book over here called "Overturning the Culture of Violence," and it really tells of a historical relations between whites and Blacks by way of colonialism, slavery, lynchings, and stuff like that. And then it basically says, look, here's the history, but like white people can overturn that history, right? They can overturn that by really investing in systems that will empower Black people. But to empower Black people, white society has to eventually give up control, right? That they got to give up control and stuff like that. I think people call it reparations. That's
because as you can see, or like during Reconstruction, like there was plenty of times where we see like Black Wall Street and like other forms of like Black people rising up, building themselves up because they wanted us to pick ourselves up from our own bootstraps. So we did, and then literally they would go and burn down the stuff that we put together. Yep. So it's like
right. So that's why the whole Black excellence don't really solve it either, right? People say we just need to be different. This is Black joy. This is Black excellence. We just need more Black Wall Street. Well, I mean, we talked about that in our class, right? I mean, just having Black Wall Street alone ain't the solution, because why was Black Wall Street torn down? I know one of the questions I asked you all in class was why was Reconstruction overturned? Reconstruction was overturned because it symbolizes Black success, not because it symbolizes Black failure, right? Too often people think that it's an anti-Black idea to think that like it was overturned because there was some sort of deficiencies in Black culture. No, it's overturned because they saw Black people succeeding. Black Wall Street was overturned because they saw Black people succeeding. Slavery took place. Colonialism of Africa took place. All these things took place because they saw Black people succeeding, not because they didn't say, "Oh man, those people over there, they ain't got shit. They swing from trees. They living in mud huts. They swing from trees. They ain't got no value to produce to the world. We're going to go and colonize those people, right?" No, actually, the ideological justification came afterwards. First, the theft came, and then the sort of, well, why'd you steal from those people? I stole from them. They were suckers anyway. Because that's what some thieves to do nowadays, right? Man, why you do that? He was a sucker anyway. He didn't deserve this. He was a sucker, right? So that's the same thing we talking about here, man. We really talking about a post facto justification and yeah. So I hopefully that makes sense.
Point though with integrating it into like fake history and stuff, because people say the same thing about the Bible, where it's like it's like a dead language. So as the years go on, stuff might be misconstrued and stuff. So I totally get that point. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the Bible is more of an instance of people making it say what they wanted to say intentionally. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like a certain interpretation of the Bible emerged right at the time when slavery
ended.
Slavery was beginning and European colonialism was beginning. So surprisingly, the King James Bible will say things like, masters, slave, obey your masters, and when the real translation might be like servants, obey your lords, right? And a lord might make more sense because we know that a lord is not going to be some white dude with a whip,
Right.
So yeah. So yeah, that is but yeah. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, very.
I also had one where it was same with the education thing. Do you think we could like if we started teaching about because like I started learning about equality or like the opportunity to be equal in high school, and it really wasn't taught like when I was younger. And do you think we could like if we started teaching the newer generations about like racism and all that stuff at a younger age, that maybe it would break the loop of more and more people having a sort of thought when they start growing up?
I mean, yeah, as long as you're teaching them what they need to do, right? So it's not just about thinking about black people. It's about power of black people, right? I mean, I think that's why I like to say colonialism, not just racism, because you can have people who like black people, like black culture, but don't want black people to be powerful and independent. You know what I mean? Because they want to exploit black people or something like that, right? Like I said, if I was Jordan Company or something like that, or Nike, I wouldn't want black people to be completely independent and free. Because that means that either the cost of production, the value that we're getting off of these people and stuff like that, they would profit off of it, not us. So, I mean, I think that, first, I think that, the whole system needs to be put into the hands of oppressed people, and if the people who have the most to benefit from their history being taught actually ran the system, then you wouldn't have a question about whether the people are going to get the right history. But I don't think necessarily the conditions of black people are the result of white people not thinking nice or not knowing everything about black people. White people don't know every single species of dog, but they don't think you should be dogs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They can't say, well, that's actually a blah 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 Yorkshire Terrier. It's actually a breed of this, and it evolved in the 16th century originally as a hunting dog. They can't tell you that. All they can tell you is that dogs shouldn't be beaten. If it's okay, a dog can sleep with you or something like that in the bed.
Yeah.
Because it's for the family.
Yeah.
But so you don't have to convince them. But I mean, I do think that like the children, black children need to be taught this stuff as a tool for their empowerment, to expose the lies and to understand the truths and things like that in the society. I do think that should be done. But I mean, like I said, if you I mean, there is a certain level of education, political education, that has to be had to change the ways of people. So yeah, I would say I kind of agree with that, right? Yeah, I mean, they need a whole new education system. But yeah, but it's not just like how to be anti-racist, right? You got all these books right now, how to be anti-racist, and you got people making buku bucks off of how to be anti-racist.
I mean, it's all filler.
Right. Tim Wise is coming to campus. He brought to the campus, you know. Come on, you know. And then he's like, "Oh, white people, you gotta understand this, white people, and black people are your friends, you know." And not a single thing that he says in there has white people giving power to black people, giving up their power, right?
No.
It's white people need to be friends. You know, white people don't know black people. That's why they treat black people like this. It ain't true. White people don't know about the culture of people from Estonia. When goddamn white people from Estonia come to the United States and get treated like white people, and they live a good life.
Yeah.
You know. So the thing is, they need to face their own history, you know, and their own, you know, and stuff like that. But that's what but I would say, yeah. But there's an element of through which education plays a role in challenging that political structure.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, I just want to, since we're touching on politics now, I don't want to get too deep into it, but you kind of mentioned it as you were answering his question at the beginning. But would you say that one of the parties that we currently have that a lot of black people kind of lean towards is really like, you know, they want everyone to feel like they're accepted, but really they're just letting black people go down a self-destructive path to where, they can't build anything, they can't make anything out of themselves, but, you know, they want them to feel free to do what they want?
You mean like Democratic Party versus Republican Party?
Right.
Talking about?
I'm saying like
political party.
Yeah, I'm saying, would you say like the Democratic Party, like, you know, I wouldn't say probably doesn't have the best interest for black people, but, you know, they're pretty much like, oh yeah, you know, do you like love yourself and all that kind of stuff, but in a way, like it's kind of they're just letting them.
Once again, it's about, you know, expropriation of people's value. Right. Well, the thing is, if the Democrats could win elections without doing anything for black people, or seemingly like not offending black people, then they would, because that's the history of the Democrats up to 1964. You know, but increasingly, they saw the rising political power of black people in the 50s and 60s. They also they saw the benefit of not publicly offending black people. It was going to help them win the Cold War, right? It was going to help them further colonize Africa, because in Africa you had leaders who were saying, "Wait a minute, you know, we're not going to do business with you because you know, you all are, you know, a bunch of bigots. Y'all treat black people like shit where you're at." You know what I mean? So in response, you know, they begin to change the way in which they related with black people, and it was for their own benefit. It was for their own political survival. But at the end of the day, you know, if you ever seen that movie Roots, there's the slave master that was like real nice, Master Reynolds, and then there's his cousin. I think his name was Master Reynolds too, but like who was like a big right. But they were both slave masters. Neither one of them wanted Kunta to be free. It just depended on, you know, subjectively, emotionally, how they related to Kunta and stuff like that. You know, one was nicer, the other one wasn't. But neither one of them wanted Kunta to be free. So I mean, without a doubt, I mean, I don't think it's debatable. You know, the Democrat Party is not concerned with black people being independent and self-governed. Instead, what we're told is like, you know, instead what we're told is things that some people generally think is good until you look behind it. That, you know, they want to talk about how black people are part of this nation as well. You know, black history is all our history and all this other stuff. And what they really mean is like, okay, you know, there's something valuable in it now, so we're going to exploit it for the benefit of the people in power, or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's debatable. I mean, some people can debate it. Some people can say, like, you know, I think the only one which people talk about, they talk about the lesser of two enemies, right? You know, so they'll talk about the lesser of two enemies, you know, or two evils. So we voting for the lesser two evils, you know. But Omali Yeshitela calls them the evil of two lessers. You know what I mean? And that black folks ain't gonna the black working class ain't gonna find freedom that way. There's elements of the black middle class that find more power. And then you got a lot of black folks who, we understand the indignity of racism, right? So what happens is, when someone when you don't have any options, and you got two stores to go to. One store, they always follow you around and they call you names. The other store, they treat you like they treat you with dignity somewhat. You're going to go to the store where they treat you with dignity, but you still giving your money to these people,
Yeah.
Right. You just dollar.
The other store don't give a shit because they don't make their money off of you. You know what I mean? They make the money off of dumbass white people who believe. That's the two political parties, man. But at the end of the day, what happens, right? They come to the South. They use all the black votes. They get Jim Clyburn up there to get people to vote for Biden. Biden literally offends people. If you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
Yeah.
People still vote. They still voted for him, and then they told us we had to vote for him. But the solution to that isn't voting for the Republicans. The solution to that is for black people to push for their own political interests, right? To have their own political parties, because that's what white America has. White America has two parties. They got two parties, right? And it's up to us to decide. And black people exist within that. Over the last 150 years, throwing their support from one of those white parties to the other white party to see whatever crumbs we might get that fall our way. But neither one of it has to do with power. I mean, like I said, I think that's just as objective as possible. I'm not
left or right.
Yeah, not try to offend people. It's just the reality of the situation.
And then real quick, just to piggyback off that, now what would you say are some of the main issues, or what would you say is holding back black people from already having our own political party? Or is it just that we need the unity, we need someone to help actually get it started? Like there's a lot of talk, but like not enough action going, would you say?
Two things. First off, you got the oppression we face, right? I keep coming back to the idea that the oppression black people face is colonialism, because colonialism is the domination of one group of people by a foreign, hostile other group of people, right? Black people don't live in a condition in the United States in which they are self-governing. I mean, one black person moves into some white neighborhoods and they feel like there goes the neighborhood, right? Meanwhile, black people are expected to live in neighborhoods where much of the property, all of the businesses, police are outside of their community, right? Outside of their community. That's how black people are expected to live in this world. Is under hostile foreign domination. And the question isn't whether Africa should be free. It should be whether the United States or China or Russia or France or Germany should have control of African resources, right? That's literally the international debate. That's the debate about Latin America. That's the debate about Africa. It's not what's best for Africa is Africa to be free. So it's who's the best colonial force that should be presiding over Africa, right? I mean, that's the conversation they want us to subscribe to. So that's the first question, right? The thing that's stopping us is the domination of colonial capitalism that controls and limits what black people can do, right? The second force is what I call the black petty bourgeoisie, elements of the black middle class who see their fortune as attached to the people in power, right? And not with the most oppressed of people. So they work as agents for the people in power against the interests of the black working class, the poorest of black people, the black people that want to be free. They work against those people's interests, So I guess those things. But then we also have to think the other thing preventing that really stop stuff is that in the 1960s, the Black Power movement, the Civil Rights movement, Black people were ideologically successful in their struggle, right? And as we know, right, most people think that like, mistreatment of Black people is wrong. If you ask most people, they would say it's wrong, right? So ideologically successful, right? It was but it was militarily defeated, right? So the Black Power movement, Civil Rights movement had won the hearts and minds of people all around the world, without a doubt. Without a doubt, Black people in the U.S. had found a level of political, of ideological success. The whether we like it or not, right? I mean, this shows you why it was defeated. But the Vietnam, the Vietnamese army, right? The North Vietnamese army. They attribute the Black Power movement and the movement in the United States as to contributing to their success against the United States in Vietnam, right? So I know everyone watching this video is going to have different positions on whether the North Vietnamese should have won or not. But I think that's not the question. I think the question is, should the United States military have been inside Vietnam, right? And there's absolutely no way in which we would think that, there's no way in which white America would think that the solution to the Black Lives Matter is the Canadian military, right? There's no way. So I don't care about, whether some group here disagreed with the election. Look, I mean, basically, what we learned on January 6th is that what's good for the goose ain't good for the gander. You know what I mean? When the United States don't agree with the election of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela, they try to have a coup d'etat, right? When they don't agree with elections in Iran, coup d'etat. When they don't agree with elections in the Congo with the guy behind me, Patrice Lumumba, coup d'etat, right? So they kill all their people, but then when white people don't agree with the election here in the United States and they try a coup d'etat, now the United States against coup d'etats. You know what I mean? Wow. They've been coup d'etats for 200 years around the world, So it's that. It's that. So the thing that I think we need to also understand is that, the violence. It was a form of counterinsurgency that was waged upon Black people to crush the spirit of Black people in the 1960s and 70s, right? And that sent people politically fleeing. But I want to say that there are political parties out there for Black people, Black revolutionary parties. Most people here want, ain't interested, but I mean, there's something called the African People's Socialist Party, right? It's a Black political party which is about organizing on all the principles that we talked about today. They run electoral candidates, but they also have projects to build grassroots Black power in communities all throughout the United States, but it's also international in the Caribbean, in Africa, in Europe, and even increasingly in the Pacific and stuff like that. So there are elements, right? And then people say, well, if your concern is that they're small, well, more people need to join them then. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. But there are political entities like the APSP that are saying, hey, the Black Power movement ain't dead. Black power needs to be in the hands of Black people. Black people can no longer just be exploited and stuff like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Sean, you want to take over the next one? I know I asked a couple.
Oh, no, it's no problem. The rest of my questions is, what made you want to become a historian, and then studying Black history, have you been criticized, both inside and out the Black community for, being knowledgeable on these type of things, on our own history?
Now, Black people never criticize me for being knowledgeable about what I know. I mean, they've always questioned, well, I say I'm a historian, okay? And they say, what type of historian? What do they mean? What about type of historian? They basically saying, you teach white history, you teach Black history, right? So they always just because I say, okay, I got a doctorate, I got a PhD, they don't say, well, he has a PhD. Everything he says is correct because he went to elite white schools, right? They don't say that. You know what I mean? And that frustrates some people. That's generally the crowd that says, "Oh, they said I'm acting white" or something like that. But no, I don't think that. So they don't say that, right? They're not upset. The criticism and really comes from the outside world. You know what I mean? There's a whole tradition to suggest that the study of African history, Black history, is not on par with the study of white history. It's like I said, it's a whole series of there's a whole political thought. The academia is built upon that. The father of the modern university is a guy named George Hegel. And Hegel wrote multiple things disparaging Black people, supporting the colonial relationship between white folks and Black folks. Black folks didn't have history. There's no important aspects of Black culture that made an impact on the world history. When you see African people, you see man at his most primitive state. This is what George Hegel said, and this is the guy who sort of is the founder, basically, of the humanities and social sciences in the 19th century. All the top thinkers follow in his political tradition. Even the most radical people, like Karl Marx, follow in the tradition of George Hegel. So that's a problem, right? So what made me want to become a historian? I had a good memory. I knew that history mattered. I always used to learn very new and cool things. I liked. It was called social studies, I think it was. Fourth grade, fifth grade social studies. I always liked social studies. I always liked show and tell. I always liked, I think we would have current events, and stuff like that. So I knew I wanted to do history or sociology. So I studied both of those. To me, they both are one and the same. But sociology deal with more contemporary stuff, and history deal with a little bit older stuff. But yeah. And also, I mean, my expressed interest was I wanted to do something that would allow me to give back to my community. So to me, because like we said, right, the production of history is the production of value, right? You either produce value for white colonial society, or for a Black oppressed society, and I wanted to produce value for the oppressed elements of the Black world. I was so through the stuff I write. I mean, here's a book that I wrote. I helped write a couple years ago. I think it came out late 2019. It was called A Black August, and it's not very big, right? But it's called Black August.
Black August, yeah.
But within it is a series of essays, historical essays, recent essays that I wrote, as well as some other activists wrote, and the purpose of it. And the purpose of this is really to produce history that can sort of inspire people to change the world. Here's another piece of history that was produced for those same political purposes, right? C.L.R. James, Black Jacobins. A history of the Haitian Revolution. Before this book came out, all the stuff you ever read about the Haitian Revolution was that Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, these were madmen. They had mental illness. The end of slavery, was because of France. They literally said France was the people who freed the people in Haiti, not the slaves freed themselves, right? I mean, that's like when nobody said that the United States, the French freed the United States, even though they did. The United States won the Revolutionary War without the French Navy. But then who was on them boats, right? Who was on them boats? Because when you watch the movies, go watch this movie called The Patriot. When you watch The Patriot, they're gonna say the French Navy, like the people came from France. They didn't come from France. They came from the Caribbean, and on them boats was Black sailors. Blacks, so Black sailors and soldiers were partially responsible for freeing the United States. But colonial powers ain't free Africa or African people, right? They freed themselves. So yeah. So that I mean, and it's fun. It's fun. Like I said, I mean, the historians are storytellers. And in the African tradition, they have something called the griot. So a sort of a storyteller. And being a storyteller in the African tradition is an honorable occupation.
Wow.
Yeah, and if you have any other books or anything or any projects that you're working on or any upcoming events that you want to promote right now is a good time.
Absolutely.
I guess
We'll edit all that in.
yeah, thank you for sharing those. I definitely made sure to note those down as you to the show.
Yeah, I made sure I typed those all up. Gonna add those to my list.
Yeah, I write for a newspaper called The Burning Spear. You can
Burning
find
Spear.
it. It's at theburningspear.com. Theburningspear.com. And one that I think y'all might like is I wrote an article on video games. But it's like it's a political analysis of video games and of the release of the release of this
Grand Theft Auto.
I talk about Grand Theft Auto in it. Did you find it?
It says
If you go to the Burning Spear website, it's right there on the front page, and it's got CJ or whatever his name is. I don't know, Franklin. With the dog. Yeah, but it was time in the release of the new game systems, but also saying, look, these new game systems just came out. Christmas was right around the corner, but like let's think about the historical relationship of Black people and video games as an industry, So, which I argue is even, because once again, you look at certain video games like Assassin's Creed, which has generally been known to like have a much more positive perspective of Black people. But like at the end of the day, those Black people are still not fighting for actual Black interests. I played that one game, Assassin's Creed Origins, because it's set in Egypt. And the actual actor is like Black like me, dark like me, and then they make him lighter. His wife is lighter. Some of the enemies, now he's fighting against colonialism, which is cool because you got the people occupying. But then they blame some of the heroes of African history, like a guy named Taharka, and they suggest Taharka was a bad guy, and stuff like that. So in the video game, he was a bad guy, and so at the end of the day, that video game, instead of being really about something that empowers people, it really was just about a way to like suggest once again another form of integrationism, right? At the end of the day, he's fighting for integration and a society in which all people in Egypt can live together, as opposed to like fighting to kick all those people out. Say, no, y'all need to go back to Greece. Y'all need to go back to Italy. Right. Egypt is for Egypt. That's not the end of the, But like I said, but when you look at the game, people, well, it's better than old games, right? People say, when in old games, Black people were seeing this beast and all sorts of stuff. So yeah. So the same sorts of ideas, but I can only do articles like that because I've sort of got the training as a historian, but also as an activist, So I've got political training and I've got historical training.
Wow.
Okay.
No, thank you. That's great, and we're definitely gonna link that article from the Burning Spear. Yeah, and I'll definitely read that. But yeah,
okay, cool.
What made me want to ask that question, on being criticized within even outside the Black communities, because I was raised around video games and comic books. My father used to work in comic books and he transitioned into the video game industry. So naturally, me being around it, just around everything that he would create and partake in professionally, I was always around it. I remember, a video game that he was testing. I think it was Tony Hawk Pro Skater. I picked the controller up. I'm playing when I'm not supposed to. So he's just like, oh wow, like he's watching me play, and just naturally that ever since I was into video games, and then piggybacking off of that, he got me into hip hop, but it wasn't into the trendy hip hop. He got me into native tongue. I grew up listening to Mos Def, Common, Tribe Called Quest, Pharoah Monch. Listening to really just obscure music music that's more obscure now. With the Lil Pumps and Migos and Future, which a lot of it I
Right,
listen to
right.
still, but it
I mean, some of it was kind of obscure at that time too, in a sense that like it wasn't your top 40 pop stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
a lot of this stuff
So yeah, so he taught you really an appreciation of black culture that was outside of just the exploitative understanding of what black culture was.
Absolutely. Yeah, he really wanted me to make sure that this is a more positive side of hip hop when a lot of it is being saturated by, the stuff that quite frankly a lot of uh colonial yeah, just the colonialism black culture, they want us to look like the violent brutes, we killing each other. We got we got black artists that are still dying due to violence. There's another artist named King Von that died recently due to violence. There was another rapper that got robbed at gunpoint.
Is King Von a guy in Texas?
He was in
Was that
I think
Chicago.
him and Lil Durk. I think it was something like
that,
that.
They were,
that the guy that got shot on the freeway?
I believe so.
Um,
I want to say, I'm not sure if it was in Texas, but they were definitely active in the Chi-Town scene.
Oh, okay, yeah. Somebody else got killed in Texas.
yeah, I think that was like 2 weeks after. I think I know who you're talking about too.
Oh man,
Something like that.
yeah. And then another rapper, Benny the Butcher. He's a East Coast rapper. He didn't get killed, but he was robbed at gunpoint. So I mean, that's the type of stuff that
Dang.
that seems to really boost a black artist cred the most. You got, even more notably like 50 Cent. He quite frankly himself, like he profited off of being shot apparently 9 times. Some people argue that that didn't happen. It was only once or twice, but that's what people expect. There's some people, there's some rappers that are just like, oh, I made it, I got shot. Oh, like, are you serious? So,
Yeah, yeah. Like these colonial depictions. I mean, it's clearly like I mean, 50 is actively said, he's the bad guy, right? He wants to be the sort of anti-hero,
mm,
in hip hop. I mean, so even his social media presence is about degrading black people,
mm-hmm,
degrading other people. I mean, he apparently was going to do one of these celebrity boxing matches with Floyd Mayweather, and then the other day he says he don't want to fight Floyd Mayweather because Floyd Mayweather can't read. I mean, like didn't have
I remember that. He can
didn't
read
have
a Harry Potter book.
what's that got to do with boxing? But I think he
Like,
just wants
Still
to.
whoop his ass.
like he could
Oh,
absolutely
yeah,
not lose.
but the thing is, Floyd invests in that same culture as well because his whole thing is money Mayweather, right? His whole thing is I can't read, but I'm, richer than you or something like that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
neither one of those things, I would say, fully produce value for us as a community.
All the rap beef and all that drama and all that stuff that people care about, but it's like, what is this going to benefit you in like 5 years? Like that's the stuff people care about.
Right. Or what does it benefit us collectively as a people?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the real question. If it don't benefit us collectively as a people, and that's
Mm-hmm.
helping us win our liberation, then
Yeah,
who's it?
because it seems like I don't know. Part of like the issue, like why like the black community can't be taken too seriously, is because we're all at different places. Like some people want this, some people want that, some people are still pledging allegiance, some people are taking a knee, some people are doing this, some people are doing that. So like none of us, we're not all at the same place, but we all kind of want the same things in a way, or we don't even know exactly what we want. That's what it seems like, and then that's how we're looked at. It seems like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if like black people, I mean, I think there is a contradiction that you identify about whether, well, like, yeah, I mean, like, if people like really respect or even fear the power of the black community, I think that's the issue, right? And I think that's what they're talking about. And the salute, and once again, the result of that is the division of us as a community. That's why, I said, African identity is key. So for us to really have power we got to understand that us controlling our own narrative is part of that.
Okay. And then I guess I'll move, to my last couple questions. So in 2021, even after all the protests from the George Floyd movement and everything that happened with Breonna Taylor and a couple other people, Audrey, I can't remember his last name.
Ahmaud Arbery.
Ahmaud Arbery. That's and then everyone else that was just, I guess, wrong place, wrong time type situation. Like, why does it still seem to be like a certain degree of fear towards Black people? Like, it seems like even though with all that and everything we've said, everything we've done, everything we've asked for, like, it still seems like people still see us now in that thug like I'm personally like I do DoorDash just make money, or that's what I do for funds. So I do that, and sometimes I'll be moving a little fast because I'm trying to get that order and get moving. And I see somebody kind of like shiver up real quick when they see me kind of coming up behind them. Now I admit I'm about 6'4", 6'5", so definitely I'm not like like a cuddly teddy bear or nothing, but it's still like, I don't know. It seems like it would be just me, but if you have any insight, it'd be great.
Because once again, like I don't know if it's fear. First off, one thing you have is projection, right? I mean, if people know their history and they know what they've done to a community, then their concern is going to be that community is going to do the same stuff to us, So I mean, I think that it's safe to say that a lot of the white world is afraid to lose the prestige and power that they built up over the last 600 years as a result of these systems of exploitation of other people throughout the world, centrally Black people, African people, right? So we have that. The other thing is, once again, a devaluation of life, right? Blacks are killed because because of that sort of devaluation, that sort of exploitation, the sort of the need to maintain a system through which white North American people have power over the lives of Black people. So when you see Black people getting shot in the street, and sort of like no questions asked, sort of collateral damage, that's no different than the United States military shooting people dead in Afghanistan or Iraq or something like that, right? So Amalia Estella says, in the United States we call the police the Marines. No, in the United States we call the Marines the police, but in Iraq they call our police the Marines, right? So when we understand the death and terror we face as a form when we understand the death and terror that we face as representative to that domination that we have, that political domination of Black people, then we can understand, why it's taking place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's important to understand history to understand what's going on in the future, or so we don't repeat that stuff ever. And then I guess last question, and then we'll probably end it on after this. Would you like to discuss a bit of the Moor history or the Moor culture, the Moor dynasty, and just them overall as a whole? Because I don't think not a lot of people know about the Moors.
Yeah, I know there's some concern about the Moors, and I know you got a lot of people nowadays. I mean, there's a lot of different variations of how people think about the Moors. You got some people who say Black people in the U.S. are Moors. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. We come from Africa. The way in which we got here was through colonial enslavement. There might have been some Black people who came here before that. I don't know, but even if they did, that don't change the reality of the colonial enslavement of millions of Black people who were forced to come here through really a brutal assault on Africa. Too often, some people are interested in the Moor thing almost to, I guess, for lack of a better term, whitewash the history of slavery, right? Because, I mean, every time we talk about stuff, talk about slavery on the chat board, here comes some dude hopping your post. His name is Solomon El Bay or something like that, and he want to be like, well, actually, not all of us came here. Some of us were here already. It's like, you were not here, bro. You know, your family was not here.
I'm
Like,
an immigrant.
like, right. They want to be like, there were some of us were already here. You know, the Moors came here. So you got that concern about it, right? I'm not really as concerned about that, but I am concerned about, you know, the relationship of the actual Moors that existed in Africa and their relationship with Europe, because it's really not relationship. So in the 7th century, I think it is 7th century, 8th century, 600, late 600s, early 7. I think it's early 700s. So 8th century. You get Moorish dynasties. So North African Muslim dynasties moved from North Africa into Spain. And they'll have some sort of political control over the Iberian Peninsula, where Spain and Portugal and a smaller country called Andorra is. They'll have control over this place, some portion of it, for like 700 years, up until like 1491, 1492, right, when the last Muslim stronghold, a place called Granada, was finally defeated. Well, and that 700-year war between Christians and Muslims for the control of the Iberian Peninsula and other parts of Europe at that time is referred to as the Reconquista, right? It's really sort of like a Western theater of the Crusades of some sort, you know, this battle over territory from Christians and Muslims. The important thing here is like everything is political at its base, right? You know, it's not just about religion. It's about, you know, the fight is about who's going to control the international trade, right? Control over the quote unquote Holy Land is because the Holy Land was basically the Panama Canal of the, medieval, early modern times, right? You know, it was the center of the world. So if you control Jerusalem, you control, you know, traffic coming through Europe, Asia, and Africa and stuff like that. You know, if you look at where Jerusalem and all that stuff is, right, it's not too far from Cairo. Cairo was a big center of production. You had a whole lot of minerals, gold, things like that coming up from other parts of Africa, finding its way to Cairo and the markets there. So it really was about, and then on top of that, you had a place called the Bosphorus Straits, where you got Istanbul. It was once called Constantinople. And so to control that whole area was, you know, you had seas, rivers and seas that will push you from basically the Mediterranean up towards what's now Russia and all that stuff. So, and from there you can even get to China and things. So the control of that area was really about control of the world market. So you had sort of people fighting over this, right? Who's going to have political control over the world? So it's not just about like who believe what God is better, because there's times in which Christians love Muslims, and there's times which Muslims love Christians, you know. And there's times in which Muslims love Jews and Christians hated Jews, right? So it's like so all that has to do with political power. So it's a political struggle taking place. Well, it's in that struggle that they call it the Reconquista, the war for the Christian reconquest of Spain. The origins of what we now think of as quote unquote race began to emerge, but they really were about national identity, right? Spanish national identity became an identity that linked together Spanish identity and Christianity, right? So to be Spanish, of the Spanish raza, the Spanish race, you were Christian. To be non-Spanish, right? You know, what meant to you was African and Muslim, and or Muslim, right? So from that, you know, you get the origins of the historical relationships between Africa and Europe, because Spain and Portugal are seeking to reverse the relationship that they feel they had with Muslims and African people. And as part of reversing that relationship, they also want to take control of the international trade, the value, the gold, the wealth that's coming out of Africa. You look at the 14th century stories of a guy named Mansa Musa, who's the richest person in the world.
Mm-hmm.
He was the West African king of Mali, a Muslim leader. Some people might try to say he was a Moor or something like that, but he wasn't really a Moor. But he was the African Muslim king, and stuff like that. So you end up with this so you end up with this situation, right, in which to emerge on the world stage, Europe is going to have to control and dominate the economic production coming out of Africa, and stuff like that. So they create really a hierarchy system called the caste system, which is going to place people that they can prove to be pure Spanish at the top of society and Africans at the bottom of society. And stuff like that. It's around that time they're going to initiate, them and the Portuguese are going to initiate the slave trade as a way to exploit the labor of African people. In Spain, if you were African, if you were Muslim, in Spain, if you were African and Muslim, you could be enslaved. If you're Spanish and European, you couldn't be enslaved and stuff like that. So that's really but what happened was that the Moors actually brought Europe out of the Dark Ages, right? At the time in which all this stuff was going on, Europe was a place of warring tribes, right? They weren't countries; they were tribes of Germanic marauders, fighting each other for control. There was a wide-scale disease, all sorts of other things. Europe is a largely barren place, right? It doesn't produce large-scale resources that can feed themselves or the rest of the world, So they were fighting over resources, things like that. But what happened was so you got what they call the Dark Ages, and I'll talk about this a little bit, but in the Dark Ages is defined by a Europeans civilization's disconnection from classical European history, right? The fall of the Roman Empire, which ain't saying much anyway, because Roman Empire was an imperial empire that enslaved people from all around the world, right? So it should fall, but
Right.
But nevertheless, Roman Empire falls, Germanic tribes take over. But there was the Eastern Roman Empire, Constantinople, right? When the Western Roman Empire fell, you get what they call iconoclasm, right? The Germans destroyed everything. Europe, they didn't build upon the knowledge of the Roman society. But in Eastern world, even when the Eastern Roman Empire fell to the hands of Muslims built on top of that knowledge, right? So the knowledge of the Africa and the Middle East, right, flourishes. We see places like Timbuktu, which was the center of this knowledge. Other universities and stuff like that, all in Africa, West Africa, North Africa. And then they take that stuff with them into Europe, right? And when they take the stuff with them into Europe, that actually, it becomes the source of the Renaissance, right? The value, the gold, the silver, the salt, all these things coming out of Africa is going to be the new source of wealth in during the Renaissance. The banks of Italy are going to be completely reliant upon the gold coming out of Africa. There's no gold in Italy. There's no gold in. You can't find these minerals anywhere in Europe. They all come from Africa. 60%, 67% of the world's cobalt comes from the Congo. That's the stuff that powers our computers, our PlayStations, our cell phones,
Lithium, I think. Yeah.
Sorry, coltan.
Wow.
Coltan does. Coltan and cobalt, right? These things are used for to generate power, to create catalytic converters, all sorts of things. All these minerals come from Africa, and all the way until today. So what happens is, much of the rise of European civilization is meant to destroy the impact that the Moors had on people. And then if you're going to erase that impact that the Moor and Moor civilization had on their own civilization, and this understand the Moor civilization is African civilization. I don't care what color people were. Some of them were black like me. Some of them were lighter skinned. They were still African, right? So when we understand the history of Moor civilization as African civilization, and them trying to erase it, once again, that's Black history. They're trying to erase the Black history so that it can support colonial history that they have. So it is very important, because it allows us a counter to the dominant stories that are told about Black people.
No, yeah, you just dropped a jewel on me, because I never even knew that the whole them bringing the Moor culture over to European culture started the Renaissance era. I never knew that. They never talked about that. They try to put on the whole black people were savages, Africa was a wasteland, and all that kind of stuff.
The type
But I mean, hearing this is geez.
Go watch like there's some older YouTube series you can find. A guy named Basil Davidson, Basil Davidson, Davidson. He's got a series of videos. I think they're from the 80s now, but they're still real good. I use them in classes. It's called Africa. So to talk about that, and it'll talk about the sort of historical transformation that took place. There's also a good video called Africa. I think it's called something like the Golden Age of the Moors or something like that, or it's called Islam or something like that, right? Islam documentary. Let's see. It might be called. Let me see if it's called Golden Age of the Moors.
Okay.
When the Moors ruled in Europe.
Oh, that's the name of it?
That's what. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's called When the Moors Ruled in Europe. Yeah. So that's one of the things you could think about. Yeah. So that's that.
All right. Well, yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the information that you was able to share with us. Everything was a jewel. Everything was a gem.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, have me on. have me on whenever. I know that this has something to do originally with some people you worked with or something like that. Matt, I thought you were saying it has something to do with some people you were having a debate with people at work or something like that.
Oh no, nothing like that. No, we're putting together a channel, and pretty much we want to do this first episode on the misunderstood stereotypes, and then just kind of diving into Black culture and our history all together. So that's what this was about.
Okay.
I don't know what I must have said some other stuff.
No. Maybe I read it the wrong way. Maybe the people you work with, you're talking about, Sean and the people you're putting together this channel with. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Have me on. Have me on whenever. And then also got a podcast. It's a podcast, so it's an audio podcast. It's called Black Power Talks. It's WUBP.podbean.com.
Nice.
WUBP.podbean.com.
Okay, yeah. Definitely we will link all that in the description below.
Absolutely,
yeah. All right, thank you.
Yeah, but we talking about we'll talk about whatever though. So if you want to come back on,
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I said, I mean, I talk about video games, talk about music, talk about shoes, fashion, all sorts of stuff. I talk about all sorts of stuff.
no, Sean has some
All right.
questions. Sean, you have some questions about some Marvel stuff.
Unless you want to say that for another.
Yeah, that
Okay,
definitely.
that
We
works.
can definitely expand on different topics for sure with different guests and whatnot. Or yeah, definitely. We want to definitely take control of the creative freedom on YouTube and just talk about whatever we feel like. I know a lot of channels so be like, oh, we only talk about this. I'm just like, why? When you can actually, you can range from different topics. There's a lot of great channels that do that. So we could
Mhm.
we could be one of those. Just put out.
Exactly.
Yeah. But
Okay,
definitely,
cool.
I'll stop the recording here. So definitely, thank y'all for
Oh.
watching. This is great. It's a good start.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, make sure to comment below any topics you would like us to cover in future episodes. And then just real quick question for discussion, I guess, is comment below if you're comfortable in your own skin or at least love yourself. So have a good day.
peace, y'all.
That's great.